What is government except for theft by consent? And that is my favorite quote from the book that I'm reviewing today. Welcome back to Connor Reads. I really appreciate your time, and we're going to be going through the third in a series, which is called The Republic of Thieves. Sorry, the series is called Gentlemen Bastards, but the third book is called The Republic of Thieves, and it's by Lynch. As you can see up here, I have read the first two of the series, and you can see those being summarized and reviewed on my page, so check those out. And we have a special guest today. His name is McLovin. Superbad's probably one of my favorite comedy movies of all time, and this is my favorite shirt, so I thought I'd treat you guys to that today. So let's jump into the summary. But before we go any further, I do want to let you know that there's going to be some spoilers, mainly spoilers based on the last two books. So if you haven't seen the last two books and you don't want to know what happens in them, then pause this video, go and quickly read 1,400 pages of book, and then get back to me, okay? So we rejoin our heroes, who are Locke Lamora and Jean Tannen. Now, when we last left them, they had been in all types of escapades on the high seas and over in Tel Varah, and now we find them on their merry way to Karthain. Now, when we last left them as well, they had both been poisoned, but just before the end of the second book, Locke manages to convince Jean to drink the antidote, of which there is not another one. Now, some of the only people that we can imagine being able to fix Locke's poison, and he is in a bad shape when the book opens up, is the Bonds Magi. The Bonds Magi are the magic and the fantastical aspects of this series so far, and there's going to be a lot of interacting with these people throughout this novel. So as we already know, Karthain is the home of the Bonds Magi. The Bonds Magi keep these people safe via their magic and just mysterious and evilness, if I'm honest, they would seem like from the couple that we've met so far. Now, Jean Tannen and Locke are both hired to help out with Karthain's 5-year game. What is a 5-year game, I hear you ask? So the 5-year game is essentially the election for positions of power in the city, and it's run every 5 years. And honestly, the Bonds Magi kind of use it as entertainment. They are not allowed to pump any magic into it. Each faction picks a side, and they have to use non-magical means to help that side succeed in the war known as politics. Now, Locke and Jean are actually hired to help out one side, which I believe was called, don't tell me, what was it called? What was it called? The Old Roots Party. I really should have remembered that. I just read the book, I promise. And what their goal is to coax, cheat, taunt, bribe, and steal their way to an election victory in ways that the Bonds Magi are not able to, which is purely non-magical. However, in this book, there is another large character that comes into play, and they do this in a way, Locke and Jean, they attack this political landscape in a way that only the Gentlemen Bastards know how. However, on the other side, the other faction of Bonds Magi have hired somebody with very similar, if not exactly the same skills. And that sets us up for a fantastic book. And so that brings us into the dislikes and likes. And today's video, I'm actually going to go with the dislikes first. And one of my first dislikes, and if you've watched the other reviews, you may have guessed it, and obviously you probably know what happens in this book, is Sabbatha. I wait so long to meet this fabled lady who Locke lusts after, and I was so disappointed. Not only in the real-time Sabbatha in Karthain, but in the old Sabbatha on their flashback adventures, which Lynch does so amazingly. And there was just, I wanted to like her so much, but she was just so unlikable. She was cold. She was extremely insecure. She wasn't trusting, and she was untrustworthy. She was cunning in a way that didn't really give any loyalty to her friends and relationships she's built before. She was arrogant. There was just so many things that I didn't like about her, and I really, really wanted to, which is so unfortunate. And there were moments where she did thaw out and things, looked better, and she was a nicer character to like. but there was just after so much and so much time, so many times that she had been honestly just rude and pris and prim and I wouldn't even say too proper, just unlikable. So my first dislike, unfortunately, was Sabbatha. My second thing that wasn't my favorite from this book was there was a big setup for the storyline. Now, in the last book, I loved the fact that so much emphasis was put on the nautical aspect of things, and there was a lot of swashbuckling and pirate adventure. Big love. In this book, when we went backwards in time, it was very much focused on theatre. Now, I'm not saying this is a negative of the book. I just don't love theatre that much. So there were very long scenes where it was only, lines from the play. And if I'm honest, I think it's to my detriment that I don't like theatre. I should definitely get into it more, because some of the wording and the sentences were fantastic that Scott Lynch had created for these plays. And looking back at it, I'm sure I probably missed some kind of parallel you can draw from the play that they were acting out in the flashbacks, not to give too much away, and whatever was going on at the time, or probably something that's going to go on in the future. But I just found it so hard to get excited about those long sections of play being played out. The last thing that slightly frustrated me about this installment was the politics aspect of it. Now, we did see some really exciting periods of the book where Locke and Jean were orchestrating this election, and I'm a big fan of politics. If you've watched any of the other reviews, I've read a few political books, and I intend to read a few more because it's a really interesting topic to me. I thought we were going to see a lot more convincing, more canvassing, more political science somehow woven into this book, but it didn't really happen. It feels like the main plot was actually kind of skated over a little bit, and I just wished I'd seen a little bit more of that political battles in action. And well, that leads me to what did I love about this book, and there were some things that were awesome. Now, I know I just said that some of the flashbacks were tedious for me personally because of the large theatre aspect of things. Having said that, I might be wrong, but it felt like this book had a lot more flashbacks and a lot more pages dedicated to building the story previously than any of the other books. And when it wasn't just going through theatre, it was my favourite flashbacks of the entire series. You got to see a lot of Carlo and Galdo. We got to see a lot of Sabbatha, obviously, when she was younger, and Locke and Jean when they're younger as well. And it really, I think they get into a teenage age at this point, and Chain sends them away to do a mission on their own, essentially. And you just see a lot of character development. You get to see the relationships between them, who they are without supervision all the time, and that really fleshed them out as characters, and I did love that about this installment. Another thing that I really did love about this book was we may or may not have learned a lot more about Locke Lamora's past, which really is a little shady and mysterious before the age of 6. And if you haven't read the book, then that's probably a very confusing statement for you to hear. And if you had, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And for me, it was very, very interesting to even hear those theories from that certain character about Locke and his past. And I'm excited to figure out, well, how much of that is true, how much isn't, and either way, how is that going to affect the storyline in the universe going forwards? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think we still have 4 more books of this series, and who knows when they're really coming out. He's writing great books, so who am I to rush Scott Lynch? But I was very excited to at least get a potential bite into Locke's past. And the final thing that I loved was the end. And I don't mean that in a negative way, as in, oh yes, we finished, the book is over. What I meant was the last maybe 50 to 100 pages were so great, especially in the main storyline. We got some of the extreme feats of magic. We saw some things that are going to change the entire universe that this book is set in, some things in Karthain, some things outside of Karthain as well. And really, we for me personally, reading fantasy, I want to see different things, but magic is exciting. Like, you want to be transported somewhere else with different laws and different rules. Now, unfortunately, I still don't learn the rules or laws of their magic and how it works and how people have a greater harness on it and they don't. And I'm sure that will come in the future, especially if the information we learn about Locke is true, which it may not be. But the ending was awesome. Learning a bit more about the, how do I say this without giving away spoilers, one of the main bad guys, and probably the most sinister bad guy we've had so far, learning a bit more about his story and where that story going as well. And yeah, the ending is phenomenal, and oftentimes, and I think looking back, it was definitely worth some parts of the book being slower and a bit more boring for it to culminate in that excitement and really set up the next books. Like, I'm so excited for the next book, and honestly I thought I was getting slightly bored in the middle of this one. So the ending, it ended with a bang. So my overall recommendation for The Republic of Thieves, I'm only going to give it a 6.3. And although I love this author and I do love this series, I think it's definitely the weakest of the series so far. And some of that's personal preference. Like I said, I'm not a huge theatre fan, and it was quite theatre focused, whereas the last one was, you know, pirate focused and ship focused, and I loved that. So that's personal preference, nothing on the author. However, I do think it was a bit slower. Some of the characters that I was really excited about meeting weren't what I thought they were going to be, or even likable, which is, they don't have to be likable, but I like the main character so much, and his attachment to this woman brings down my estimation of the main character almost, if that makes sense. However, this book does have some benefits. We learn a bit more about magic. Like I said, the ending is awesome. There's big ramifications, and really it does set up this series to go from not small adventures, but adventures in certain parts of this universe that's been built, and mentions of the past, from now, based on what's happened in this book, I do believe that it's going to have a more universe encompassing storyline from now forward, and there'll be an overarching storyline that might not be able to be closed up and shut from one book at a time, if that makes sense. I think the storyline for the next 4 books might be overarching for those 4 books, which would be great, more like a saga. So that's my overall recommendation. You will love this book, if you just like Scott Lynch, so I did enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but also if you're a big fan of theatre, you'll love this book. And if you're a big fan of love stories where one person is playing extremely hard to get and is borderline unlikable, then you'll also love this book. And that's everything from today. Relatively quick review. Thank you for joining me. Please like and subscribe for future book reviews that will be coming out from myself. I believe the next book I'm reading is Animal Farm. It's not that long of a book, so I'll probably have it done either today or tomorrow, and then we'll post that video. Outside of that, if you have any comments, if you agree with me, disagree with me, have any books you'd like me to read, or have any comments at all, please post them, and I'd love to hear from you. Have an amazing day.